Hi guys, bom dia, good morning. We are here on another podcast. We have another special guest today, Jill.
Hello.
And of course you guys know Rafael. Jill, she's a foundation training instructor, certified instructor. And my story with her is very interesting because when I finished my certification course in California a couple of months ago, I was here teaching a class and you walk in wearing a foundation training shirt, and immediately I look like, what do you know about foundation training? And she said, well, I know a lot about foundation training because I'm also certified. And funny enough that there is 2 people in the whole Houston area certified in foundation training, and we bump each other right here inside the gym. Her kids are my students in my programs here on the kids classes. And immediately we had the idea to start the group classes that I thought that I was not ready to teach yet, but when I met Jill, we joined forces and we start the classes here every Friday. And we've been getting a lot of good feedback. We've been helping a lot of people with posture and back pain and everything what foundation training bring to us. And I was very excited to get to the podcast when we're going to be able to talk more about foundation training, because I think Jill, she also have a very similar experience with me. She found foundation training out of a struggle a little bit. And I'm going to ask her to talk a little bit about her, introduce herself. Jill, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you very much.
One more time to come and spend some time with us. Yes, tell us a little bit about how you meet foundation training at first, where you come from, and what's your passion. That we think there is a lot of interesting things about you.
Okay, well, I guess, I'm from Australia, and I have been living in Houston here for the last 5 years. But I have lived all over the world, and I first came across foundation training when I was living in Scotland, funnily enough, just on one of the TED Talks. And I had been on a bit of a mission for the last probably 15 years to try to help my own back. I was a swimmer and a triathlete growing up, and swam to a pretty decent level, and always had kind of shoulder injuries, always had a little bit of a back issue. And then it's probably nearly 18 years ago now, I had an accident. Someone jumped on me and I prolapsed 2 discs, and then they just continued to degenerate from there.
Oh, wow.
And then I had 2 kids, and I was before I had the kids, I actually decided I needed to get on top of this. So I started doing Pilates, and Pilates helped. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. I'm going to learn to teach this. My background was in naturopathy and acupuncture, and I did also a lot of structural balancing work and massage and all of that sort of thing. So it kind of all fitted in with everything that I did. So I became a Pilates instructor. We lived in the Middle East for a long time, but still my back kind of plagued me, and I was a little bit reliant on my chiropractor. So, and he used to say to me, you're 90% better than you would be if you didn't do all the stuff that you do.
Right.
But it just wasn't enough. Then when we moved to Scotland, I came across this one day, and I started doing some of the exercises, and I was like, okay, I'm liking this. So then I ordered the DVDs and I got the book and started doing that when we lived in Scotland. And then as it happened, we then moved to Houston. And I said to my husband when we moved here, I want to go and do this course. So I went to Boulder and did the level 1 cert for foundation training, and loved it. And my back, seriously, has never been better. I really have found such relief. So it's just kind of complemented everything that I do, but I really find that I can it's such a great tool to help fix yourself, you know, and then it completely changes the way you move. And I was always fairly body conscious and posturally aware. I've had this kind of rounded shoulders ever since I was a kid, from so much swimming, you know.
Yeah, we all do now.
and then everything that we do on the computer and forward and picking kids up, and so it's really absolutely helped change the way I move. And I'm just trying to you know, as we're both passionate about it, right? We've kind of got a similar story of our own back issues and how we're helping ourselves. So we just want to share it, you know?
And you've been sharing probably with a lot of people. I see like you've been helping with the classes here, actually been leading the classes, our foundation training classes. And what do you say about people that came through you and they experienced foundation training? Because me personally, I'm still overwhelmed with the benefits they get from foundation training. Sometimes it's like one class. I had a girl, you're gonna meet her today. She came last Friday, and she's a soccer athlete, and she's all messed up with her back. And she came here, and I was asked like, I hope that you was here to answer her questions a little more, because she had a bunch of questions. She was getting tense on her lower back when she was doing the exercises. And I felt like when the class was over, that I didn't deliver as much as I could. But like 1 hour after, I got a mail from her. Like, wow, I love this stuff. Really, I feel relief like I never felt before. And that was
so cool.
This person,
so cool.
Like she came here 45 minutes. She did the exercise with us, the breathing. She learned a little bit how to do the breathing, the decompression. And then like 2 days after, she said like, I already signed up for the workshop, that we're gonna have the workshop with Jesse here in 2 weeks.
That's great.
And yesterday she emailed me again, do you have foundation training class tomorrow? Like you see the excitement. And I believe that excitement only comes because the results.
And
absolutely.
Before we go there, let's give a little bit of context about what foundation training is. Jackson have been talking about it since 2 episodes or anything like that. He mentioned foundation training all the time. So give a little context about what foundation training is, and then you can answer that question.
Yes, that's
most
a
people
good point,
don't know.
Because when you talk about foundation training, there's so much something training, right? Functional training, all kinds of training. And that's something that actually, if you could share with us a little bit, what's your understanding about foundation training? Integration, breathing? You know a little bit more.
Yeah, well, all of those things, but you know, I don't know if you've mentioned on the podcast before that it was developed by Dr. Eric Goodman, who himself was, and I believe he was at chiropractic school, and he was a cyclist and big weightlifter, and I know he loves to surf and all of that sort of thing.
Athletes.
Yeah, and I remember him saying that he felt, he came back from a cycle one day and sat down at his desk, and then his back just collapsed on him, and he was unable to cope, and felt that if he was at chiropractic school trying to help other people, how is he going to help other people? He can't help himself, right? So you know, that kind of really resonated with me too, and you know, he's developed this series of exercises which just, it's so simple, but it's just taking us back to more primal movements and the way that we're meant to move. We don't move the way that our ancestors and our previous generations did, that were out and far more physical than us. We have such a sedentary lifestyle where we're sitting at the desk or driving cars and in this collapsed position, and all the muscles on our back line of our body, they don't work properly, and they don't talk to each other. They're not integrating.
And when you say collapse, can you say like a little bit like folded into
we become kind of very forward postured and head forward, and these muscles on the back sometimes become elongated and
it's externally rotated.
Feet externally rotated, and you know, the hips sort of super tight, and the inner thighs not actually integrating properly enough, and not working well, and
we are under the gravity that kind of compresses down.
We've got all that gravitational push all the time.
Yeah,
so
you can imagine like a person like just neck out basically, back folded, feet looking out, like toes looking out. So someone can imagine a little bit more. Yeah, that's
it
crazy.
just really kind of increases that pressure on your neck when your head's forward, because the weight becomes, as that lever moves forward, becomes so much heavier. So it's about you kind of returning back to moving from that hip joint, learning how to hinge from your hips, so then the muscles on the back side of your body are actually able to create that movement, rather than us just moving from our lower back all the time. You're moving from the big muscles, the glutes and the hamstrings that are supposed to actually create that movement for us. Then using the decompression breath is that big expansive breath to create space and height and width, and you know, really kind of improve that intra-abdominal pressure, create that space, so that takes any pressure off those vertebrae as well. but then integrating all of that into the movement so that all those chains of muscles are moving together. So you've got the hinging pattern, you've got the anchoring, which anchors the pelvis to the ground, then using that big decompression breath to create that space and lift away from the pelvis. And then, building that strength, building strength and lengths under tension all the time is what we're trying to do, rather than just segmenting things and working in one movement pattern at a time.
Connecting everything together.
Yeah, connecting
basically.
everything together. So we're all from your foot connection to the ground all the way up to the top of your head.
Yeah.
So really kind of creating that connection and grounding into the ground, and then really activating.
And you
from
feel
the
your
base.
muscles like start to support your body again.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
like when your muscles all integrate together, you feel like you're holding it up there all the time. Because when you talk about posture, foundation training is not really a posture exercise, because I remember like posture, like,
Yes.
extend the
back,
shoulders
real
back, and then there's
Chest
nothing
out.
to do. When you learn foundation training, you realize there's not much to do with posture. It's like much more than that.
Yes.
Yeah,
And it's my experience with foundation training is pretty similar with yours. And I was teaching a jiu-jitsu class one day, maybe like 5 years ago, and I had this giant muscle spasm that really got me all stiff, and I couldn't move anymore. And that was a year and a half of a miserable life, in a way that
Yeah.
I could not play with my kids.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
couldn't teach classes. I was living the reality of my students walk in the gym and say, "Professor, how's your back today?" That was a constantly questioning, like,
So they already
"How
knew.
are you? How's your back?" Like, this was part of me already.
Yeah.
And then of course we live in Houston. That's a giant medical
Yeah.
place. You
Yes.
get everything you can imagine. I tried everything, all kinds of therapies and injections, until the day I said, like, I need to do something about it. Or I stopped to teach and train jiu-jitsu, or I go to a back surgery.
Yeah.
That was like, even the doctors tell us, like, it's kind of 50-50, can work, cannot work. But in that position that I was, I said, let's schedule and let's do it. And I met this random person that was in the gym one day. His name is Richard Groves. He's from the UK. He's a British Airways pilot. So he suffered a lot with compression and posture,
Right,
no
yeah.
long hours, a lot of jet lag. And he had pretty much the same problem that I had. And he found out about foundation training. And he told me, like, hey, try to do foundation training. And at that point, I have tried so much stuff that's just sounded like another thing.
Yes, exactly.
It's just another thing. Oh man, foundation training. Now there's this foundation training thing. Okay. So I didn't pay too much attention on that. And then Richard ended up becoming my student, and he ended up to come to the gym every time he fly to Houston. He come to the private class with me. And of course, what's the question when he walk in? How's your back? And I said, my back is stiff. And did you try it? Did you try it? I said, no, I look at it. I tried. I watched the TED Talk from Eric Goodman. I read a little bit about that, but I never really let me understand this thing a little deeper, And one day Richard called me from the UK, like kind of mean with me, like, did you try foundation training?
It's
And I
really
say,
pushing.
man, this is serious. I'm gonna have to look at it. And then I did the same thing. I bought the DVDs. I put that in my house, and I started to do that exercise every day. And 10 days after that, my pain started to go away. And I start to cancel doctors. I cancel my surgery, and I say, man, there is hope here. And then that's where the obsession comes from,
Yeah.
right? That's why probably you are sitting here today and have this such a connection.
Absolutely.
Because foundation training really put me in a totally different way of movement and lifestyle. It's become my lifestyle now, and the only thing I want is to master it as much as I can. To share with other people. What I've been doing a lot already, even before I get certified, I will say, like, hey, look at this, without compromise or anything. Look at this, read this book, do this exercise. And people was coming back like, Jackson, this works.
Yes.
This really, really works. And it's just overwhelming, how the benefits that foundation training bring. And I really compare foundation training and jiu-jitsu. They, for me, are very similar, because it's not something simple.
No.
It's
So
complex.
complex.
Yes.
You have to understand, you have to study a little bit. By the end of the day, if you have a back injury, that's something that really messes up your life. You spend so much time going to chiropractors, doctors, medication, and everything. If you just get all that time and you put on the exercising and reading a little bit and understanding, I think.
But I think it's also about. It's like anything, with a heart condition, then you may have to take your heart medication. If you have a bad back or any kind of injury, you have to change the way you do things, and this becomes then part of your life.
Yes.
This is your medicine, right?
Yes.
So along with your nutrition, etc., it is your exercise then becomes part of your treatment. So you've got to look after yourself. You've got to be proactive, and it is very much a practice. It is not a one session fixes everything. And I've had success with one session. It's been fabulous, but people may be in a position where one session doesn't work, and very much so just start easy. You don't need to go 10 out of 10. It's just little by little, just even start with the breathing, start with changing how you move, all that sort of, but it's very much it's what you do all the time, not just for the 45 minutes that you're in a class.
That's like everything.
I can relate that. I have 2 phases of foundation training. When I start to do it, I got better, and then I say, man, I'm better, I'm good. So I kind of start to slack a little bit, and then one day I had another muscle spasm, boom, like another wake up call, and I say like, wow, man, where's foundation training? Where did I put it? Where did I put it? And then I realized like, it's not exactly what you're saying. Like, it's not that class. You have to integrate that in your life, in your routine.
It's like jiu-jitsu.
Yes,
you come to class every time. You come to class every time, getting your stripes.
That's
but I wanted to give a little feedback to someone that hasn't done it or don't need it. Like for me, I don't have the pains that you gotta have for your back. But I do it so I don't have to. I do it so I can prevent it. So I can prevent it and everything. Well. And not only that, the feeling that I have for last Friday and with Gio's class 2 weeks ago, just after the class or after doing that in that class in particular, and even in my regular life after doing foundation training, it can be the breathings, it can be the anchoring, it can be whatever exercise you're doing. I always feel that I have, like the name says, a good foundation for me to just like sitting down, my back can hold me, like walking, like I just feel that I have a
like
good,
everything's working out,
everything's good, is working on like it's supposed to be. So I get out just like straight, like it's weird feeling that you can't explain. You get out of foundation training just like, okay, everything is nice,
taller, longer, and freely.
It's like after you clean your car, after you put gas in your car, after you oil change, your car just smooth.
Exactly.
So you go in that position, like I don't know, you just feel amazing. So that's one of the things that if you don't do it yourself, you don't need to or anything. Just come in and try it because you're gonna feel like clean car, oil change.
Exactly. Like you started afresh. It's, really cool. It's like a reset, isn't it?
It's really nice reset on your body, and like Jackson says, it's just part of it. Like each class you come in and you get to work in each part of your body that maybe you didn't even know that you had a problem with. And then one of the things what do you think on your experience that you had before your foundation training? That's what Jackson was going in the beginning. Like what have even students before foundation training and after foundation training, like came in with Pilates maybe, and then when you include foundation training, what was the difference in between both? And it's not better or worse, but it's just a different type of movement.
It's a different type of movement, but I kind of integrate the two of them together now because I think that a lot of the foundation training principles can be included in Pilates. So it really is something now that when I teach a Pilates class, I'm incorporating a lot of FT into that. A lot of the breathing, a lot of the anchoring concepts and that sort of thing. And I know that my students are like, whoa, that's it's like a new connection. And it really wakes stuff up for them. And really working, I mean, we talk about working through the feet a lot in Pilates anyway, but really like actively getting that connection to the ground and creating that stabilization and anchoring through the pelvis, and then using that breath to move away whilst challenging that with your moving your extremities. They really find a huge difference.
What do you think is a common problem that they go to you and say like, hey, I need to, like, I don't know, my back or anything, like the common problem that most people have when they.
Well, it'll often be backs, but I teach a lot of ladies that play tennis as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of them have this kind of rotational
Yeah.
issue with their shoulders down to their arm, and we do a lot of arm tracing and shoulder work and back extension, just integrating all of that. And also because it's a cross-body movement, we're just trying to balance everything up again. And they do, a lot of them are finding huge amounts of relief and just feeling stronger and better. It's not, and a lot of the people I see too don't necessarily have a problem. They just come for the fitness aspect. And now I've added foundation training, and it's really kind of making a difference to them, and they feel that kind of shake, and it's a different feeling. It's really kind of building from, you can feel it from the inside. You know, this strength and tension that kind of comes, and space that comes from the inside of your body out.
No, it's incredible. That's why I try to explain it that way, because you know that feeling when your car is just smooth. You feel the same way in your body. It's just a weird experience. And they say, and I think on Dr. Eric Goodman always says that they compare yoga with foundation training, right?
Yeah.
What is the main difference between the both of them?
Oh,
I know there's
think
a lot, but I haven't
they're
heard of it.
quite different. I know that he uses some. There's some kind of principles and aspects that come from yoga and Pilates into foundation training, and other things that he uses as well. But yoga often is a little bit more about moving outside necessarily your natural anatomical movement. So it's a lot of twisting and holding positions, and you're using a breath, but it's a different type of breath from the decompression breathing, and you're maybe not anchoring so much. So, and depending on the yoga instructor,
it changes.
It's very different. There's so many different types of yoga. So there'll be some aspects of yoga that have come into FT, but I wouldn't say that it's based on yoga at all. It's very much kind of come from Dr. Eric's brain and developing
what
it
a
all.
brain, by the way.
And for why I'm asking that question is because they compare both of them, because there's some moves that maybe people say that yoga is like flexibility and mobility and everything like that, and foundation training is the same, but it's just different. It's not much flexibility, more about mobility in that department, right?
It's mobility and building strength under tension. So kind of helping with that mobility and moving from the joint. So you're not kind of really compressing into the spine or anything like that. It's really trying to create that movement from the hip joint and really getting that space through the body rather than collapsing into it. So I kind of think that they're similar, but
no, it's totally different.
They're very different.
When you look at it, it's kind of the similarity is like if you look from far, you see like both of them. There is these static forms that you have to hold this position for a while, and I think that's the similarity, because if you really practice yoga and then you do foundation training, you're gonna see like the concept is different, the breathing is different, the anchoring and the concept also is different. You know, like I don't think you bring yoga movements too much for your daily routine, like for things like, for example, brushing the teeth. Empty the dishwasher. That's something that you always mention to the students, like, wow, I love to empty the dishwasher. The same way I love, like, when I get home and I see this mess that the kids left in the house to do the pickup. It's so much fun to move your body. You know, I think, and that's happened in California when I was there last week.
I agree. You're right.
Yes,
absolutely.
People ask me about that, and I was like trying to share with them exactly this idea. Like they ask, like, so what's the takeaway when you do a foundation training class? It's a lot of takeaway. As soon as you walk out of the class, you bring something that you're going to incorporate in every little movement that you do. And I think that's what makes such a difference compared with other modalities of
So what's the first thing that you take away? So for people to understand, like, you go to a foundation class and then you're like, okay, what is
I think the first thing, in my opinion, I want to hear what you have too. Like, my opinion is the first thing they take away is the hinging on the hip.
Yes.
You know, like the hinging on the hip. We're gonna show by the end of this podcast. Maybe we can put one video just demonstrate what the hinging is and the breathing, like a very short video so people can understand. But that's what I felt. And when I was there in California, I asked in my table, we are having a dinner, I said, anybody here have back pain? 7 people had back pain in my
Yes.
table. And then I was able to introduce them a little bit, like I teach them like 15, 20 minutes of hinging movement and integrating the legs. And next day everybody come to me and say like, oh, I was taking shower yesterday and I kind of felt when I went to open the shower that I was hinging and trying to anchor my legs, and when I was picking things. So, and that was like 20 minutes. So my opinion is what you take away from foundation class, from the foundation training class in the beginning, is like you start to understand how to stick your pelvis back and reach, instead of bending your back forwards, you start to use integrating the posterior chain of muscles.
So basically, like bending in an efficient way, like using your legs more than your lower back. Most people like fold their back instead of sticking out basically their butt a little bit, so they can use more their hamstrings and glutes, so they can reach on something. It looks a little bit funny to do it, but it's the most efficient way that you can do. So
Doesn't
you don't have
matter
lower
how
back.
it looks.
Yeah,
It just feels good.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I say it. That's why I say it's better. It's just efficient way. Just an efficient
Fun,
way.
like when I first learned foundation training, I used to go to a water fountain in the gym, and my students started, "Hey, professor, what's going on with you? You're moving different. Like you're sticking your pelvis back now." And I say, "Yeah, that's how it is, and that's how you change the way you move. You know, the trembling when you do the exercise. You
those
shake.
little changes that are starting to happen in your tissues and your fascia. And
What do you
that's the
think,
thing.
Gio? What was the first impression for you when you did the class that you took away?
When
from
I
the
first
bending?
did it, I'll tell you the first thing that I actually got, and really when I felt that it made such a difference for me, was it was my daughter's 6th birthday, I think, and I had spent 5 or 6 hours making her birthday cake.
Oh wow!
Her birthday party was the next day. It was a big frozen castle, and it was just this. It was pretty big.
Yeah.
Anyway, by the end of that, my back was finished, and I could hardly stand up. We had the party the next day, and I just thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to stand up for this party. Anyway, I thought to myself, no, I'm going to get down, I'm going to do this ankle extension exercise, which is something that if I had a sore back in Pilates, I wouldn't do. But by creating that anchor with the knees and pushing your feet down and really kind of using then the breath to pull the upper body away from the pelvis, whatever that did, and then I got up afterwards and I stopped and I went, oh my goodness, it's gone. Wow.
Really?
And then that's what really made me go,
Yeah, that's a click.
this works. This is so different, and it works. And it was really kind of taking that concept of really anchoring and then getting that full extension and using the breath. So that's really what was that was the first thing for me. But what I try to get people to understand after, say, their first class, besides the hinging, is using the breathing, using the breath, and using the anchor. So if you're standing in line at the supermarket and you feel like, taking ages, or in the bank, and you're like, with your hips forward and your head forward, I just kind of get people to think, well, create that anchor with your feet, draw your heels together, unlock your knees, bring your weight onto your hips, hinge your hips just that small bit, string out through the top of your head, chin back, chest up, and just kind of feel how that creates some space in your body. And you're only standing in the line at the supermarket.
Nobody's
And
gonna
that
notice.
can nobody's going to notice what you're doing, but just be aware and just take a couple of minutes to take a few deep breaths. And then the feedback I get from people is like, yeah, you're right. And I think about it now. Every time I go to the supermarket, I think, oh, Jill said, remember to do this.
Not even talking here, you just start feeling like, okay, I'm just listening a little bit, also breathing. And
You remember in the ICP, we went to ICP, and that's 4 days. You spend like 8 hours to 10 hours in the mats, sitting, standing, and it's very, very tiring. And I remember like me and Rafael, like
that's how jiu-jitsu
we are
certification
fine. We are fine like for the whole day, and you see like people collapsing next to you and falling asleep and like really uncomfortable, laying down on the ground and sitting on the ground, and you see people moving, trying to find a comfortable spot, and there is no comfortable spot. And I was like, the whole time I was there, I was fine. Of course you get a little tired, but not even compared if you don't have that tool, you know, like you see people around you crashing all the time.
Oh, everybody was.
Yes, everyone ends up like
One of the guy come and ask to me like, hey, you guys sit in this weird posture all the time because like there's 100 people and me and Rafael the only one that's sitting like
we're on the
back.
edge of the seat. Yeah, we're
Yes,
on the edge of the seat
with the
just in
feet
straight. Yeah.
anchored on the floor, internally rotate, and then you can last much longer, you know, in those kind of environment.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to say enough about foundation training. I believe I have two things that I learned that completely changed my life. One was jiu-jitsu, and the second one was foundation training. And I couldn't do the first one if I don't have find out about foundation training. So it's become part of my life. I can't describe the benefits that I get. Lately, I felt my digestion differently. Probably because I create more room inside my body.
More space,
More space inside. I felt that my digestion is flowing much better. And the way I drive after I did the certification, I found out that when you drive, somebody designed that car for you to sit right there, not like to crash on your car and feel relaxed inside the car. So I felt like long drive, when I do a long drive, is much easier to do that too, and much less tiring. And yes, so it's a great thing to do. It's not easy to learn.
It's not easy to learn, and I cannot stress it enough. It has to be integrated into your life. It's very much a practice. It's not I'm just going to do it for once or twice a week when I go to a class, or maybe you can get to the stage where you don't have to do any more than kind of 5 or 10 minutes a day, perhaps. But you know, you need to be the judge of your own body and what you're doing to counter. Like if you're sitting at a desk for 8-9 hours a day, 5 minutes of FT might not be enough to kind of reverse all that, you know.
Yeah, but if you do like 5 minutes every hour,
absolutely. Then
if you stand up every hour and do a little decompression and a little founder,
getting the awareness of
that's changed the whole idea. And then when you see your life turns, all your movements turn in foundation training, and then when you start to get the benefits, probably took me, let's say, 1.5 years, you know, for me to finally feel that I was like unconsciously moving with the concept of foundation training. I remember when Jesse came to my house last time, he stayed in my house for 3 days, so I was able to get a lot of information from him. And he said, like, do a founder. And my founder was all wrong. It's kind of missing a lot of parts of it. And I'm still getting like so much benefits, even though my exercise, my movement pattern was not really changed yet. I still got out of the back pain. I was never experienced back pain anymore since I found foundation training. And the improvement just keep growing. And then I did the certification, and then I felt that I hit the breathing.
And once you do the certification, you're like, oh, wow.
Wow, after 4 days I walk in the beach like, wow, what's this? What's going on here? You know, and even when I was running, like I went for a little run, and you feel like you're breathing, you expand more, and it's really changed everything.
Same, and it, you know, for me, I like to do stand-up paddleboarding, and I try to integrate it all, anchoring onto the paddleboard, and really try to use that whole arm line and back line to connect into the and it just feels so much stronger, and I feel like I get so much more out of it. It's fabulous. I just love it.
If you're confused a little bit what's going on, it's just passionate about foundation training. Works
we're just
well, we could stay here and talk for hours because of course foundation training hits our life really hard in a very positive way. And my final talk about foundation training is I couldn't be happier with the sciatic pain and the disc herniation that I had 4 years ago. You know, at that time my life was ruined because I could not do my passion, that was training, teach jiu-jitsu. And today, looking back, I couldn't be more happy that I had that impact on my life. That's led me to foundation training. I end up meeting Eric, Jesse, and the whole crew of foundation training. Actually, tomorrow I'm going to spend 7 days with them. It's probably like the dream of my life. I'm going yes. Jill's husband gonna join us there in Costa Rica, and I can't be more excited. That imagine if I got all these benefits just to hang out with Eric and Jess and all these guys and breathe a little bit more and see the lifestyle, what they think about everything. It's probably gonna be another step for me, like I had many others. And I'm super excited, and yeah, we are here. And you have anything else to tell us?
I'd just like to add to what you just said then about spending time with the, you know, all the guys that are involved and the other instructors too. You know, every time I've been to a certification or to I did the instructor immersion up in Santa Barbara, and my husband and my kids came along to that too. And I always have such a good time because everyone's got such a great energy, and they're all such fabulous personalities.
Yes,
like everyone,
right.
Dustin, the whole crew. They're so passionate about it, but they're all got a fabulous view on life. You know, very healthy, active, whole food eating, clean living. You know, lifestyle that we embrace. So I love it, and I know my husband said last time I was up there, he said it's really nice to kind of get to meet this crew that you're involved with.
Yes,
and
so positive, right?
Yeah, and he just loves it.
I told my wife yesterday that when I went there 2 weeks ago, I went there to see Jess and Eric and Dustin, and when we walk in, everybody hugs you. Like, hey, how are you?
It's a really
like,
great.
it's
Well,
so
it's like
welcoming.
you guys here. It's
Yes,
like you
it's
guys every
so
time we walk
welcoming,
in.
you
It's
know?
so welcoming.
I always
you know?
liked that, but like I felt it's just improved more and more.
Yeah.
You know, so
It's connection. And what we're gonna do after is show a little like beginner principle
we
about the
can
breathing, maybe
show just a little bit.
or like something that you recommend like, to do. So if people are watching or listening, you can go into like social media, just see how the highlights go, and give a little gift for you guys, so that way you can practice at home. And if you have somebody doing foundation training, hopefully nearby, you can search online like foundationtraining.com, right?
Yes,
yeah,
that's right.
foundationtraining.com.
Yeah,
And we've got our class every Friday.
Every Friday we have classes
noon.
here. Eventually we're gonna try to expand for more classes.
Yes.
And but I think everybody that's wanna know more about foundation training, go to the website. Or also there's a video on YouTube, Dr. Eric Goodman talking on TED Talk. It's a 14 minutes video that gives you a very good explanation of the problem, what the problem that causes us to have this kind of sciatic pain and herniation disc that affects at least 85% of the American population. What's a huge percentage, you know, and just find out, study a little bit. There is books, there is all the information is out there, and if you want to have the solution in your hands and don't leave the solution in other people's hands, the foundation training I think is the best way for you to go.
Try it out, see how
So
it goes.
there's the free content online, and then there's the subscription, which it's very comprehensive. It starts right from the beginnings, and it teaches you everything you need to know.
Yes.
So
All the steps.
And we are here to help. If you have any comments, just send us an email for me or to Jill. And we can't be more passionate to share this with other people and see the benefits and get people to a much more healthy lifestyle, because live with pain, it's not fun, and there is a way to change that.
Yeah.
Like we've been talking here for all this time, like we changed our lives doing foundation training, and it's much cheaper than you pay for a doctor, a back surgery, you know.
Yes.
And yes, I was very fortunate to meet with Jill. She really like put me in a different concept of teaching, and I've been learning a lot from her.
And we have too. We're very lucky to have found you, and Jack loves his
your son
his
been doing
jiu-jitsu.
very good in
He loves
jiu-jitsu. We
it.
love to have your family around, and we're looking forward for a life connection. Yes, we're coming to Australia when you guys move. We're gonna go to Australia, visit you guys there.
I hope so.
Rafael, anything you have to say?
No, then we're good to go. So you can share the comments and everything like that, and then you can email them. So if you have any questions about foundation training, we're gonna leave something super a beginner that you can do at the office or something like that. Breathing a little bit better, supermarket like you were saying, waiting there to pay. So let's do that, and then thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Okay.